My name is Aubrey Jeanette Thorne. A 30-year-old independent financial consultant officially became Aubrey Price, but the two seats reserved for family remained glaringly empty. The sound of the judge's voice was warm, yet the air felt cold. I tried to smile for the photo anyway, holding my husband Marcus Andrew Price's hand a little too tight, pretending the sting didn't reach me. 3 days later, the text from my mother, Eleanor Rose Thorne, appeared. "We need $5,000 for your brother Ethan Thomas Thorne's company trip. Send it immediately. No congratulations, no apology, just a massive, immediate demand." I looked at that number. $5,000, and something small and tired inside me finally stopped begging for love. My entire life had been spent as a secondary funding source for my brother's never-ending ambitions. This time, I chose my peace. Instead of complying, I went to my desk. I typed a brief, formal congratulatory letter to Eleanor. Attached to it, I sent a digital copy of the house's mortgage bill that had arrived that morning, a bill I paid alone from my consultancy earnings. I added one line in the notes section, "Enjoy the investment." Then I changed the locks. For the first time, our small apartment in Austin was truly ours. It felt silent, solid, and utterly protected. But not for long. If protecting your own peace makes you feel lonely, I understand. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is. And let me know if you're sitting in the same quiet, lonely place I once was. The silence in my apartment did not last long. Only a few hours after the locksmith left, I heard the insistent knocking. It wasn't social, it was a firm, commanding rhythm that demanded attention. I froze, peering through the peephole. Two individuals in dark blue Austin police uniforms stood in the common hallway. My heart pounded, the familiar chill of fear rising. I knew who had sent them. There was only one person in my life willing to use civil authority to breach a boundary. I steadied myself, took a deep breath, and opened the door. A younger, blonde female officer spoke first, her voice professional, but not overly aggressive. "Hello. Are you Aubrey Jeanette Thorne? We received a call from your mother, Eleanor Rose Thorne." I nodded, forcing my voice to remain even. "Yes, that's me. What seems to be the trouble?" "Your mother reported that you are acting erratically, changing locks abruptly, not answering calls, and she is worried you might harm yourself." "We just need to confirm you are okay," she said, her eyes assessing me from head to toe. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of the lie made it circle back to tragic. This script of manipulation was so familiar, only this time, Eleanor had called the police instead of the church pastor. "Do I look unstable to you? I'm home from my honeymoon sipping tea. I am perfectly well, and I have absolutely no intention of self-harm. I simply changed the locks for security reasons. This apartment is my private property." The other officer, a taller, broad-shouldered man, glanced around the clean, orderly apartment. "May we step inside just to log a report that we spoke with you and confirmed your well-being?" he asked. I hesitated for a second, then stepped back. I knew cooperation would end this quicker than confrontation, though I felt the invasion acutely. They stepped in, and I felt the pressure of their official presence. "Are you experiencing any stress regarding work or family?" the female officer asked, holding her notepad. I looked her straight in the eye. "I just finalized a major real estate transaction at my office, and I got married. The only stress I am experiencing is directly related to trying to set boundaries with the person who sent you here." The taller officer offered a slight, almost imperceptible smile. "We understand. Do you have any medical or psychological issues we need to note?" "None," I stated. "No medical issues, no psychological issues, only boundary issues. I changed my locks to prevent my mother from accessing my private residence. That is the only fact here." They completed their procedure quickly. They confirmed my stable disposition and logged the report. Just before they left, the taller officer paused. Ms. Thorne will file this as a no concern report. But remember, sometimes when people start standing up for themselves, others panic. It happens more than you'd think. When the door closed, I leaned against it, shaking not from fear, but from a cold fury. Eleanor Rose Thorne didn't just want the $5,000, she wanted control. Her willingness to weaponize the police to try and force access to my home had crossed every line I had ever drawn. The action of calling the police was not anxiety. It was a blatant attempt at psychological violence and reputational damage. I immediately texted my husband, Marcus Andrew Price, who was just finishing his workout. "The police were just here," I wrote. What did she do now?" Marcus replied, his voice heavy with immediate outrage when he called back. I recounted the entire story, emphasizing the outright lie about self-harm. Marcus, who always had a grounded and objective view of my family's dynamics, stated, "This only confirms one thing, Aubrey. She knows she's lost physical access to your property, and she's panicking. This wasn't concern. This was a dangerous escalation." I thanked Marcus and ended the call. His support was invaluable, but the weight of my family drama was mine alone. His words only reinforced my certainty Eleanor had declared war, and I was ready to fight back. I stared at the no-concern police report. The fact that my mother would go to such absurd lengths using an emergency service for a personal charade showed there were truly no limits she wouldn't exceed. The police visit wasn't the end. It was the confirmation that an even more sinister escalation was imminent. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about my total independence, and I needed to act fast to secure it. I felt an urgent need to check everything Eleanor could have potentially touched in the past, especially my finances, the source that had always funded Ethan Thomas Thorne's every whim. I couldn't sleep that night. The image of Eleanor weaponizing the police to intimidate me kept replaying. The fear was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. I knew I had to check everything. The police drama was just a distraction, a smokescreen for something bigger. If she was willing to lie to law enforcement, what lengths had she already gone to secure the $5,000 she demanded? I didn't trust that the request was the beginning of her scheme. It was likely the climax of a financial maneuver already in progress. The next morning, I poured myself a cup of black coffee and settled at my desk. As an independent financial consultant, I had meticulous records, but years of ingrained suspicion led me to open my primary bank's app first, then the National Credit Bureau reports. My hands were steady, but a cold pit formed in my stomach as the pages loaded. Initially, everything looked fine. My savings account, my retirement funds, and my primary mortgage balance were all where they should be. But then I scrolled to the credit inquiries section. Two items, both very recent, blinked back at me: Capital Trust Bank and Regional Home Lenders. Neither was a bank I had ever done business with, and I certainly hadn't applied for anything in weeks. My chest tightened. I clicked deeper, pulling the full report. My fear shifted from worry to sickening certainty. 2 new accounts had been opened. They weren't credit cards. They were far worse. One was a substantial personal loan, and the other was a home equity line of credit HELOC opened using my social security number and name. The address listed on the HELOC application wasn't my apartment in Austin. It was their long-term suburban residence, the family house in Round Rock, Texas, which they still technically owned, though I knew the equity was thin. This revealed Eleanor's core motivation. She hadn't just used my name. She had tied me to their property's debt, leveraging my financial standing to extract cash. I felt a wave of nausea followed by a surge of pure adrenaline. This was not a small petty theft. This was major financial identity fraud involving a federally regulated loan product. The balances were already climbing. The personal loan was almost entirely dispersed, and the HELOC had several large draws. I clicked through to the transaction records for the HELOC. The money hadn't gone towards a medical emergency or a critical need. It had been funneled to several high-end vendors, prestige event planning, the Grand Ballroom Hotel, and a specialty lighting company. It was all going towards the high-profile professional networking gala that my brother Ethan Thomas Thorne needed to attend to secure his next promotion. My mother's demand for the $5,000 was simply to cover a final urgent payment that their fraudulent loan hadn't quite covered. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus Andrew Price at his office. I skipped the pleasantries. Marcus, they didn't steal my credit card. They opened a HELOC in my name, tied to their house. There was a stunned silence on the line. Aubrey, are you sure? A HELOC. That's not a misdemeanor, that's serious financial crime. Marcus, whose job involved contract law, understood the gravity immediately. Marcus's role was to provide calm, legal realism. I'm looking at the application now. My name, my SSN, their address. And look at the co-signer's signature. It's definitely Eleanor's handwriting. She signed her own name as the co-borrower, but she used my identity for the primary applicant to get the approval. That confirms two things, Marcus stated, his voice now purely lawyerly. One, they used you because their own credit wasn't sufficient for the loan. Two, by signing her name and using yours without authorization, she has criminally implicated herself. This isn't a family matter anymore. This is a state and possibly federal case. He advised me to immediately download and save all digital copies of the loan documents, the transaction history, and the credit report as evidence. Do not contact them yet. Do not delete the text message. You need to file a formal report with the issuing bank, the FTC, and the local police task force immediately. But first you need to call Eleanor and you need to record it. I felt a surge of cold empowerment. My mother had just given me the perfect, undeniable weapon, her own confession, which would be admissible in court. I took one last long look at the documents, absorbing the sheer betrayal. Eleanor had monetized my name to fund Ethan's career, and in doing so, she had created an ironclad legal case against herself. The next step was preparation. No time for hesitation. I needed undeniable proof that this wasn't merely a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate act of fraud committed by Eleanor Rose Thorne. After my conversation with Marcus, I knew the documentation was strong, but a verbal admission would seal the case, turning a civil investigation into a potential criminal one. I checked the state law for Texas. One-party consent meant I could legally record the call without informing Eleanor. I configured my phone, activating the voice recorder, and laid it face up on my desk next to the printouts of the fraudulent HELOC application. I took a deep breath, letting the cold clarity of a financial professional override the weary emotion of a lifelong victim. I was no longer calling my mother. I was calling a suspect. I dialed her number. She picked up on the third ring. Her tone was instantly sharp, accusatory, fueled by the fury of a manipulator whose control was slipping. "So you're finally answering. I suppose the police confirmed you were alive," Eleanor snapped. I ignored the bait. "Eleanor?" I said, my voice steady, professional and devoid of any familial warmth. "I found 2 financial accounts opened under my name. A personal loan and a home equity line of credit, both using my social security number, but listing your address. Do you want to explain that?" There was a noticeable pause, the sound of her calculating the safest lie. Then came the hollow, practiced laughter I had heard 1,000 times when she was trying to minimize a serious transgression. "Oh, that, honey. I was helping you build credit. You should be grateful. The bank told me your profile was excellent. We used it to cover some of the immediate costs for Ethan's gala. By paying for his company event, you're actually investing in your brother's future, which is all of our future." "Stop dramatizing, Aubrey. It's family money. What's yours is ours." I gripped the edge of my desk, focusing on the click of the recording app. This was it. "Helping me?" I repeated softly, letting the absurdity sink in. "You forged my signature on a federally regulated loan document tied to property you don't even own outright. That's not helping, Eleanor. That's felony identity theft. And it's a crime." Her tone shifted instantly from dismissive to vicious. Don't be ridiculous. We are your parents. We raised you. Do you think the world doesn't know who paid for your private school tuition? You always have been so ungrateful. It's our money that put you in that expensive consultant job. The lie was predictable, but I was prepared this time. You mean, the private school tuition that I paid for myself by working at 2 minimum wage jobs since I was 16. You mean the college tuition that I took out federal loans for after the college fund you promised me magically disappeared for Ethan's summer camp years ago. I paid for this job, Eleanor, and I earned this life. The silence on the line was instant, heavy, and stunned. She hadn't expected the rebuttal, much less one backed by financial facts. Then came the sound of her quick, sharp inhale laced with pure panic. You wouldn't dare turn on your own family over a little bit of credit boosting. You will regret this. If you mess this up for Ethan, you will destroy your family, she hissed. I delivered the final blow calmly, the words carefully chosen. I already did. I've filed a formal report with Capital Trust Bank's Fraud Investigation Unit and the FTC. The accounts are frozen. The bank has your signature, your phone number, and your address on file. They have the transaction records showing the money went directly to pay for Ethan's gala vendors. They will be contacting you and Wesley Dean Thorne as the co-signer and resident of the property, tied to the fraudulent application very soon. Consider this your legal notification. The ensuing silence was deafening, not a stunned quiet, but the heavy sound of a manipulator realizing the game was irreversibly over. You're destroying this family over a misunderstanding, she choked out. No, Eleanor, I said, ending the call. You destroyed it the moment you decided my name was worth more to you than my trust. I hung up, saved the recording, and labeled it Eleanor Confession, Financial Fraud Case. May 2024. My hand shook as I finalized the upload to my secure cloud server, but my chest felt light. The manipulation ended today. The phone call wasn't just evidence, it was the formal severance of the lie that had defined our relationship. The final confrontation needed to be public. There would be no private, tearful apology session where Eleanor could employ her manipulative tactics without witnesses. I needed neutral territory, a place where screaming was impossible and documentation was the only language spoken. I chose a standard, slightly run-down diner in Highlands Ranch, known for its cracked vinyl booths and weak coffee, perfectly situated between my place in Austin and their suburban home. I arrived exactly on time, taking a booth facing the entrance. Marcus Andrew Price was with me not as a participant, but as a silent witness and my anchor. His presence alone was enough to communicate seriousness. They arrived 15 minutes late, a classic power play. Eleanor Rose Thorne entered first, wearing an expensive floral dress and oversized sunglasses that served as visual armor. Wesley Dean Thorne shuffled behind her, looking smaller and more tired than I remembered. Ethan Thomas Thorne trailed last, his eyes glued to his phone, already radiating the entitled boredom of the golden child, whose demands were supposed to be met without question. Aubrey, Eleanor said sharply, sliding into the booth across from me, her sunglasses still on. You really made us drive all the way out here for dinner. We have a major gala to prepare for this weekend. We're not eating, I said. My voice surprised even me. It was steady cold, purely functional. We are talking. A waitress came by, poured our coffee, and disappeared. I didn't touch mine. I slid a thick brown folder across the Formica table. It contained the printouts of the HELOC documents, the transaction receipts, and the transcript of the recorded phone call. 2 financial accounts were opened under my name, a personal loan and a home equity line of credit. Both tied to your address, both used to fund Ethan's gala, I stated, keeping my tone flat. Eleanor's smile barely twitched. It was the same defensive smirk she used when trying to return a clearly used item. Oh, that honey. I did it for you. You need credit history. I was helping the family secure the investment. I told you this on the phone. Helping, I responded softly. You forged my signature on a federal loan application. That is a crime. And you called the police on me to try and regain control of my physical address after I changed the locks." She waved her hand dismissively, nearly knocking over her water. "Wesley, tell her not to be so dramatic. It's family. You've always been so ungrateful. Do you think the world doesn't know who paid for your private school tuition? Who got you this far?" This was the core lie, the emotional blackmail she weaponized every time. I laughed, a sharp, almost brittle sound that turned several heads in the diner. "You mean me? I paid for that private school. I paid for it with every paycheck, every double shift at the mall, every federal loan I had to take out because the college fund you promised me disappeared when you suddenly needed to buy Ethan that expensive startup inventory 10 years ago. I got myself this far, Eleanor, and I earned this life on my own." Ethan Thomas Thorne, finally looking up from his phone, groaned audibly. "Here we go again with the ancient history. Can we just write her a check for whatever she wants and be done? I have to be at the venue shortly." I turned to him, fixing him with a gaze that held 20 years of quiet resentment. "That's your gala you're talking about, Ethan. The one you are expecting investors and partners to attend. You will be shaking hands and making deals in a venue that was paid for with a fraudulently acquired HELOC under my name. You danced on my stolen credit. Enjoy the spotlight." Eleanor's voice sliced through the tension, cold and hard. "Enough. You don't talk to your brother that way. I borrowed for the family. You're the one trying to hurt us. You used my identity." I said, quieter now, directing the words solely at Eleanor. "You committed fraud. And you called the police on me to try and paint me as unstable so you could maintain control. That ends today." Wesley Dean Thorne finally spoke, his voice thin, utterly defeated. "Sweetheart, your mother just got carried away. Let's not blow this up. We can fix it privately. We'll cover the $5,000, Aubrey." I pushed the folder closer, tapping the cover with a single finger. "There's no fixing it privately, Wesley. The bank already knows. The FTC already knows. There is an open fraud investigation tied to this loan and your co-signature." Eleanor's eyes snapped up. All the color drained from her face, leaving her stark white under the harsh diner lighting. "You did what I reported. The fraud I confirmed. The accounts are frozen. The bank has your signature, your phone number, your address, and the recorded evidence of your verbal admission. You will be hearing from both the bank's legal counsel and the federal authorities soon." The silence that followed. I had no intention of attending Ethan's gala, but I knew exactly what would be happening there. After the silence of the diner, the wheels of justice, though slow, were in motion. The timing was deliberate. The legal intervention needed to happen during the event Ethan and Eleanor had paid for with my stolen identity. This was the pinnacle of Ethan's career aspirations, and its downfall had to be just as public. That weekend, the lights of downtown Austin glowed, preparing for the most anticipated professional event of the season. Ethan Thomas Thorne was scheduled to be the keynote speaker at a major industry gala, a high-stakes networking opportunity vital for his company's next funding round. He was walking into that ballroom convinced he was the golden boy, unaware that the foundation of his success was about to crumble. I stayed home, deliberately disconnected from the event, focusing on my work. Marcus Andrew Price was my calming influence, ensuring I didn't anxiously refresh news feeds. He reminded me, "Your job is done, Aubrey. The system is taking over now." Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with an unexpected text. It was from Shannon Kyle, a former colleague I'd stayed in casual touch with, the one person outside Marcus who knew about the original financial abuse, though not the full extent of the HELOC fraud. The message was short, simple, and exactly what I needed. "I saw the news. You did the right thing." The news. The system had taken over. I didn't need to ask Shannon for details. I went straight to the local Austin business news websites and social media feeds. The headlines were cryptic at first: "Major financial disturbance reported at Grand Ballroom Gala." Then they quickly sharpened: "Law enforcement interrupts industry gala over alleged funding fraud." The details emerged swiftly. Around the time Ethan was meant to be introduced, representatives from Capital Trust Bank, accompanied by plainclothes investigators from the Financial Task Force, the division I had reported the HELOC fraud to enter the Grand Ballroom Hotel. The investigators, not uniformed police but financial law enforcement, approached the event organizers and demanded an immediate halt to activities directly linked to the disputed funds. Specifically, the catering and the venue rental, which had been demonstrably paid for with the HELOC money acquired through my identity. The scene captured in shaky videos posted instantly to LinkedIn and X was chaotic. There was the distinct sound of a microphone feeding back then, the sharp voice of a bank representative announcing that a key funding source for the event was under federal investigation for identity fraud. The camera then swung to Eleanor Rose Thorne. She wasn't an official organizer, but she was the one who fought back hardest, screaming hysterically at the bank representatives, denying any wrongdoing, and trying physically to block their access to the venue's finance staff. Her expensive gown and dramatic display only served to highlight the crassness of the situation against the backdrop of tailored suits and evening wear. The absolute public shame landed squarely on Ethan Thomas Thorne. He was pulled aside by one of the organizers, his face transitioning from confusion to sheer white-hot terror, as he realized the event, the platform for his biggest career leap, was collapsing around him. He wasn't just embarrassed. He was professionally ruined in front of potential investors, partners, and competitors. His reputation, the meticulously crafted image of the successful, well-connected golden child, was publicly shredded. I watched a short clip where Ethan turned and looked directly at his mother, Eleanor. He didn't look at her with loyalty or concern. He looked at her with hatred for the incompetence that had exposed him. This was the moment the family-first ideology shattered for the golden boy, not because his mother was a criminal, but because her crime had affected him. The financial authorities seized records on site and issued formal notices to the event sponsors and organizers regarding the fraudulent funds. The gala ended abruptly, dissolving into confusion, gossip, and the furious departure of high-profile guests. I closed the laptop. The satisfaction was not sweet, but cold and complete. Eleanor had tried to use public services, the police, to intimidate me. I had used public services, the Financial Task Force, to expose her crime. 6 months later, the initial chaos of the gala had settled, and the legal system had delivered its final quiet verdicts. The consequences were irreversible and financially devastating for the Thorne family, while I finally experienced the profound calm of complete emotional and financial severance. The legal action taken by Capital Trust Bank was mercilessly effective. Eleanor Rose Thorne, having signed the HELOC application and been recorded confessing to the intent of boosting credit, a form of fraud defense that failed spectacularly, was ordered to immediately repay the full accelerated loan amount. Due to the substantial financial obligation and legal fees, Eleanor and Wesley Dean Thorne were ultimately forced to sell the family house in Round Rock. The investment Eleanor had fraudulently secured to fund Ethan's ambition resulted in the loss of their primary residence. It was the realistic, severe consequence of federal-level financial fraud in the U.S. system. Ethan Thomas Thorne, the golden child whose success was predicated on my financial sacrifice, never recovered professionally. The public shame from the gala combined with the official demotion created a permanent professional stigma. The company eventually let him go during a restructuring phase. He was forced to move back in with his parents temporarily before they sold the house, his career aspirations crushed not by lack of talent, but by the reckless entitlement of his enabler. The final communication came not from a phone call, but from a lawyer's office confirming the completion of the debt settlement process and the formal notification regarding the no-contact order I had filed. Wesley Dean Thorne and Eleanor were relocating to a smaller, distant apartment. Their savings depleted, their future uncertain. Wesley finally bore the cost of his passivity. He lost his financial partner and his home because he chose silence over integrity. With the legal loose ends tied, Marcus Andrew Price and I made our own final move. We sold our apartment, a place that, despite its happiness, still carried the memory of the police visit. We bought a beautiful small home further west in Austin, funded entirely by my own earned capital and Marcus's solid savings. It was a home built on honesty, not on debt or deception. I stood on the porch of our new house watching the evening light, and I finally understood that true freedom isn't just about independence. It's about drawing the line and holding it regardless of the emotional price tag. My mother tried to control me by using my identity and exploiting the fear of familial abandonment. But in the end, her attempts at control cost her everything she valued: her reputation, her golden child's success, and her comfortable life. I lost a family that never existed, but I gained a life of genuine peace. This is the lesson I want to share with anyone who has watched my story. The greatest investment you can ever make is in your boundaries. When you are the scapegoat in your family, the one who is constantly expected to sacrifice their safety, sanity, or savings, you must understand that their love is not unconditional. It is a contract, and the price is too high. Do not be afraid of the dramatic fallout when you finally say no. The chaos they create when you establish a boundary is not evidence that you are wrong. It is simply evidence that their system of control is failing. If they resort to using the police, forging documents, or public shaming, report it. Use the legal system as the shield it was designed to be. The quiet peace you gain on the other side of that dramatic fallout, the quiet of knowing your identity is secure, your home is yours, and your future is independent, is priceless. Choose peace over family obligation, choose truth over drama, and choose yourself over the burden of carrying their failures. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If you've faced similar challenges, please share your thoughts and what helped you draw your own line in the comments below. Your story matters and your strength is seen. Strength